Time is 5:33. The Abington Conservation Commission meeting for January 31st, 2023. I didn't screw up the year. The main item of business is going to be discussion and possible vote on revisions to the Abington Conservation Commission bylaws. I know we touched on this at the last meeting and about possibly changing updating the bylaws, because I don't know when the last time they were updated. I know we talked about potentially adding two revisions to the bylaws. I know, Jean, you kind of spearheaded this at the last meeting.
Excuse me. Yeah, I did. I just had a question because of the simple fact that, like with everything else we've been looking at with the fees and the NOIs, I just figured it was time to look at the bylaws, and if anybody had any input, do we need to go the bylaw route? I don't know. So I kind of threw it out there for everybody and what I'd like to see, but I started doing some looking around at other towns. And,
so
go ahead.
No, I thought you were done.
I am done.
Okay. What happened, Paul, afterwards is I took a look at our bylaws, and I also took a look at a bunch of other towns, and I realized a lot of towns had gone to regulations, and they had a bylaws and regulations. So I went back into our wetland bylaw, and we have a section in our wetland bylaw that says that we can promulgate regulations. It's section 171-6 in our bylaws. And it says, after public notice and public hearing, the commission shall promulgate rules and regulations relative to effectuate the purposes of the bylaw, effective when voted and filed with the town clerk. Failure by the commission to promulgate such rules and regulations or legal declaration of invalidity by a court of law shall not act to suspend or invalidate the effect of this bylaw. So basically what we have the ability to do is kind of like what the Board of Health does, is we have the bylaws that give us the ability to promulgate regulations. So we can, instead of changing the bylaw itself, we instead can develop regulations. So we could do a regulation for the setback that we might want. We can do a regulation for replication. I know we were talking about maybe increasing the replication percentage, from 1 to 1 to maybe 2 to 1. That kind of thing can be done. I think it is not as time critical. I mean, I'd still like to get them done, but it means that we wouldn't have to go to town meeting, and instead we'd have we'd publicly notice it and publicly hear it, just like we did the
fee schedule.
The fee schedule, exactly. And
So
that's
21 days.
Yeah, it doesn't say 21 days, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, so not the next meeting, do it the following meetings.
Yeah,
Following meeting.
yeah, and then at that meeting we can, if we come up with some kind of draft, we can discuss it amongst ourselves and also have the public, put it out there. So I think that's the way to go. And it also lets us do things in baby steps, which is what I'd like to do, is pieces at a time, rather than trying to do, I'd like to do the regulations all separate, pieces of it until we're done. And then, if we decide at some point to compile them, that'd be great. But I think it would give us some ability to, work through all that. There's a lot of good stuff out there in the internet, and most of the towns that I think I found are things like Braintree and Plymouth and Canton and Norwell. A lot of towns have done this, and I think it's just a practical way to approach it.
Yeah,
and that way, every time we have a minor change, we don't have to go all the way to town meeting to get it changed. We can take care of it ourselves. And the Board of Health has like 12 regulations, smoking, tattoos, noisome disturbances, that kind of thing. And it makes it simpler, I think, for us to deal with. And it also lets us kind of put, I think, a little more structure in some of it too. So that
I know at the last meeting, Lynn had that sheet with all the setbacks for almost every town that had them in the state, right?
Yeah,
Maybe you can forward that, have Tony forward it off to everybody so we can look at that for the next meeting. 'Cause I know that was one of the items we talked about, possibly adding to the bylaws if we can make a restriction.
yeah, I've actually been going through and updating it. There's at least 20 more communities that weren't on that original list, so I'm just going through and adding them. And yeah, getting to the regulations, I didn't realize about that. When I was looking at bylaws, I started noticing the regulations as well. And then I was just curious, well,
Second.
how many other towns are doing this? And I just found an Excel spreadsheet that
Oh,
had
you did.
information about every town and like whether they have regulations, do they protect vernal pools?
Oh, wow.
And so I just sorted and counted, and there's 145 towns in Massachusetts that have separate regulations where their
Wow.
bylaws allow them to set
Yeah.
further policies. So it was pretty dramatic. And I started thinking, well, what about the South Shore? And just about every town in the South Shore has separate regulations. So I think,
And the other thing is, when I did look at the bylaws, the setbacks and the replication, some of it has been incorporated in people's bylaws. So it's probably even more that has done like the setbacks and, it's just interesting, but I think the regulations are the way to go for sure.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can
We
you,
won't have to go to town meeting, right?
What did you
We
say,
won't.
Alex?
We won't have to go to town meeting, correct?
That's
Correct.
correct. That's
Okay.
correct. We would have a public hearing, so people would have
Mhm.
the ability to
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
to us and we'd be able to correct it. But it also allows us, the
Right.
ability over time to, clean up stuff, adjust it, rather than
I-
go
I
to a
really-
meeting at a time.
I really like that, Kathy, because of the fact that, just mentioning the bylaw change and it's like how much time restraint we were under, at least with the regulations, we have the time to look at each and every individual aspect of the things we want to improve upon or change. And we have that time and the availability to review it and then hold the public meetings. That just makes a whole lot more sense.
yeah.
I really
Lynn,
like that.
Mhm.
Could you, same thing, could you send that spreadsheet over to Tony and she could
Yeah.
forward it to us? That way we can all look at it and
Mhm.
we can all just highlight what we think we'd like to add to the,
Well, this spreadsheet
Richard?
was just basically, so I have two spreadsheets. One of them just said things like, does a town have regulations? Do they have a bylaw? So like each column would say yes or no. Does it have protection for vernal pools? Yes or no. So I can send that. And then the other one I have is the spreadsheet that I'm working on that had, this town has a no disturb and this is how big it is. And some of them also have things like they give greater protection to vernal pools, that sort of thing. So I'll continue working on that spreadsheet and then I will send that to Tony as well.
yeah.
I think that's
Both
great.
of them. Okay.
And then if anybody
So-
else has anything they'd like to add, they'd like to see added on.
Right,
just-
because once
Well,
there's an
what I-
exception,
What I think
Sure.
we need is a draft regulation, Paul, for the two things we wanted was the replication and the setback. So I'll volunteer to draft something up that people could look at. I'll try to, I probably will bounce it off Lynn just because she's been looking at this stuff too. But maybe we can pull a draft. There's a lot of good examples out there that we might, that cover things that, we probably didn't think about, in the non-disturbed zone. We still want to, if we just do decide it, you want to still allow a utility to go through. If, there are utilities, they have a tendency to be through wetlands. There may be, there are some exceptions, stormwater drainage may, dump into the wetlands. So
Yep.
there's just some exceptions and some of it's already, we don't have to think about it. I think it's already been written. We just need.
Oh,
to-
yeah. It's already, DEP tells you what what's exempt.
Yeah. And then and the ones I've seen, I think which Lynn brought up, some of them have different setbacks for residential subdivisions and commercial, and we can talk about that later. I don't think today is the right day to discuss it at this point. Maybe
No,
but get
So do
the
you want,
draft.
basically, I mean, we know the two that we intended to put into bylaws, but now we're gonna put them into the restrictions, or regulations rather, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So do you want, if anybody else has anything they'd like to add, just email you directly?
Yeah,
And
that'd be good.
then at the 2 meetings from now, you'll have that, and if we wanna take something off, or we wanna change something, we can just edit that and then vote on it that night after
Exactly.
public discussion and everything.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Lynn. That's a lot of work.
Oh, thank you.
No, it was very
Is that our
interesting,
next
actually.
meeting next week?
No, we have a meeting next week, but we won't be able to discuss that until the following meeting.
Okay,
Oh,
Let's give it the 21 days.
okay.
We have a meeting next week.
Yeah, is it
I
next
believe
week?
so,
I
right?
thought it
Yeah.
was
Oh,
second
I'm
and
sorry.
fourth.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
so, all
2
right, so,
weeks,
yeah.
14th.
So then do we want to have a meeting?
Valentine's Day.
So we
Oh,
do the
geez.
public hearing on the 28th, Paul? Is that right?
Valentine's Day. Boy, all right.
Well, we don't have to have the meeting that day if we want to push it back, you want to push it back a week? Because that would be the 21 days, right?
Yeah. Do we
So
have
you
anything, we don't have anything that is time critical, right? There's no notice of intents filed or anything that would make us have to have the meeting sooner?
I don't think so. Tony, you would know better than me. Has anything come up?
The only thing that we have currently is someone wants a extension on an order of conditions. That's it.
Oh, yeah, the one that we granted the 6-month month to?
Mhm.
Yep.
When does it expire on them?
I'm not sure as of right now. I don't have the documents in front of me. I'm actually home. I'm not in the office currently.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I can get back to you with that information.
because if we push, no, then it would still be 14 days, right? Oh, no, I'm sorry, it would be, yeah, so if we push that meeting back from the 14th to the 21st, then we would be able to vote on this at the next meeting.
If it gets posted tomorrow.
Yeah. Tony,
So,
stay unmuted. Can
So
you,
oh, sorry.
can you
Go ahead.
post it? Can you post it tomorrow?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Okay,
So the idea is we're gonna have a meeting on the 7th and on the 21st?
no meeting on the 7th.
No meeting on the 7th.
It's the second and fourth Tuesday of the
Okay,
month.
so we're keeping that. We're not gonna bump back to the
We're
7th
just
instead of the
we're gonna
14th.
we'll push the 14th back to the 21st, and then if nothing comes up, we won't have a meeting on the 28th.
So you want me to post it for the 28th?
Post
Just
it
to
for
be
the 21st. No, post
21st.
the next meeting
Okay.
instead of the 14th will be the 21st.
Okay.
Okay. And then on the 28th as well, or no?
If there's something
If
to
there's
be,
something.
Oh,
urgent,
something
yeah,
pops up. Okay,
Right.
okay. All right, so nothing until the 21st. Got it.
Excellent.
Okay.
That gives us time to look at other towns, check out more towns.
Yeah.
And their regulations. I know I looked at Avon's. I like Avon's, but
anybody else have anything to add to this, or I'm gonna move on to meeting minutes?
I've been-
Actually, sorry.
I'm sorry, site visits.
Paul, can you hear me yet? I've been in and out of service. I've been trying to.
I hear you
catch
now,
bits
so
and pieces. Oh, okay, good.
Talk quick before you
was-
lose service.
Yeah, was there any talk of restoration and anything like that? I know we talked about replications, that potentially the 2-to-1. But the one thing that kind of irked me over the past years is there's no real regulations in place requiring a restoration to have, if an 8-inch caliber tree was taken down, there's no, they can put a 1/2-inch whip up and that's it.
Mhm.
I'd like to see more of almost a 1-to-1 restoration. If you cut down 48 inches of trees, you got to put that back in caliper size. I'd like to see something like that if we could. I just don't know if that falls into replication or if that's a separate item would be. like a regulation for restorations. I'm
I'm
not sure
not
how to
sh-
do that.
I'm not sure, Tim, but I do remember seeing a few towns having some responses about trees and
Yeah,
I don't know, I
I
think
saw
in the
that
buffer-
too.
I think in the buffer zone, we have jurisdiction. I know planning's talked about it a bit, but I think that it's important because it is water that those
Mhm.
trees are retaining,
Oh, yeah, I took a, yeah.
especially in the buffer zone.
I have a chart I'll share with you guys of how much mature oak tree, pine tree, how much water they can soak up in a day, how many thousands of gallons.
Yeah. I think
Mhm.
that's a really good point. I haven't really looked carefully at some of the regulations, but there were mention in several towns about the need to have, to not cut down trees that were 4 inches or greater or that sort of thing. So I think that could be added for sure,
Mhm.
like a 1-to-1. Yeah, I mean, because people tend to try to get cheap on it. We have to keep saying, no, 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 no. You need to have
Right.
something bigger than that. So it would be
Right.
nice to have something more specific. So I like that idea.
Mature pine tree absorbs 50 gallons a day.
Wow.
Douglas fir 800 gallons a day.
800?
Yeah,
Holy
My
mackerel.
God.
a,
God.
a sequoia, which I don't think there's any around here, is 1,000 gallons a day.
Wow. Amazing.
Wow.
I'd encourage everybody to take another look at our bylaws. I think it would be a good read to really look at it because I think it gives us a lot of jurisdiction that we haven't necessarily really thought about.
Yep.
I think the regulations will help, but I think it's worth reading for sure.
Mhm. I agree.
Yeah. And there's an issue I need to bring up about one of the bylaws. I think there's a typo when it comes to the amount of jurisdiction or that jurisdiction that we have with rivers, ponds, and lakes. I noticed that it said that land within 20 feet of rivers, ponds, and lakes, and lands within 100 feet of other resource areas are presumed important, blah, 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 which didn't make sense to me because the Rivers Protection Act gives rivers 200 feet, not 20. And ponds and lakes have 100 feet of jurisdiction under the State Wetlands Protection Act. So I thought that was a little strange. And I was, reading on some lawyers' blog about wetlands, and they were mentioning that with the home rule, which gives towns the ability to make their own bylaws, you can't make it you can't have less protection than what the state gives. You can give more protection, like you can have more of a buffer, but you can't have less. And
Could you think
so
they intended to have 200 feet instead of 20 feet for the
I think
pond?
I think it meant to be 200 for rivers, ponds, and lakes and not 20. And later, like two or sentences later, it mentions the commission therefore may require that the applicant maintain a strip of continuous undisturbed vegetative cover within 200-foot or 100-foot area.
Hmm.
And I was like, where's the 200 feet coming from? And,
Yeah.
I'm like searching throughout the bylaw. There's no mention of 200 feet anywhere. So I thought either we only have jurisdiction over 20 feet of river, ponds, and lakes, which DEP would very much disagree with, and they would probably give us a superseding order of conditions saying no, or we have a 200-foot buffer on all the other resource areas.
Okay.
So the way I'm reading this is that it probably is a typo. So I looked to see if I could find anything in the meeting minutes that were online mentioning, anything about the bylaws. It only goes back to 2013. There's one point where there's mention of 10 feet of setback, which I didn't see anywhere. There's mention that there should be a 20-foot setback, but there's nothing about how we only have this jurisdiction. So I actually got a hold of, I thought, well, let's go to the library. They've got all this information, the meeting minutes and everything. And one of the librarians got back to me, and he thinks it's a typo. Looking at the original thing from 2003, he thinks that when we look at the original documentation in the town meeting minutes, as well as what was written, you can see that it says 200. And I can share my screen and you guys can see the actual, like the picture he took, or I can just send it as an attachment. Or I think, Tony, I sent that to you as an attachment, right? But here it says land within 200 feet of rivers, ponds, and lakes, and lands within 100 feet of other resource areas. So that made more sense, because it's like, okay, that's what they mean is the 200 feet. And later on in that paragraph is referring to the rivers, ponds, and lakes. So unfortunately, I know that it was updated in 2006, but he said that the town meeting minutes just say that the bylaws were updated and the Conservation Commission approved it. So I don't know what that means, whether I can't imagine that they decided to decrease protection to 20 feet when the law says it has to be greater.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
But they did that at town meeting?
I don't know. They did update something at town meeting, but we don't know what they updated because there's nothing in the minutes. So we have to figure out, what did they update? If they updated it to 20, that's really weird. And anybody who appealed to DEP, if we made a decision based on that 20 feet, DEP would, if they appealed, they would say nope, and they would put on that 100 feet for the ponds and the lakes, and of course the 200 for riverfront. So I can go and talk and see if I can find out what the warrant is, or look at the meeting minutes for the Conservation Commission for 2005, early 2006. But if it is a typo, what do we do?
That's probably a question for town council.
Okay. Wouldn't that be like, though, when we go to town meeting and sometimes some of the articles they submit are just like cleanup because the language was written incorrectly or something, so they have these articles just to correct things like that?
Yeah, but I don't know about a typo. You know, that seems like something that should just be able to be fixed.
Okay.
But I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's a good question for town council.
I mean, I guess
Sounds
first
good to
we have to see if we can make sure it is a typo, see if we can find the warrant, see if it, I don't know if it was at the town meetings, was televised, if we can actually hear the warrant. And
would it be in the town report? Would it be in the town report? All the articles usually submitted, aren't they, in the town, the annual town reports for that period? You know how you can
the warrant's usually in there, Jean.
Yeah.
Right. So if we could get the annual town report, you might see the warrant to see what got
So they
submitted.
might have that at the library. Do you want me to see if I can pop in and grab something or ask or whatever? Because I know you guys all work.
Yeah, that'd be
tell me
great.
All right, tell me what you want me to do, because I do have a little more flexibility in time, because like you people, I don't have to work anymore. At a paying job, that is.
Right.
Yeah,
That would be great. I would really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the other thing, Jean, is if that's not very successful, taking a look at the meeting notes from conservation from 2006. They maintain
Sure.
paper copies for back then. They just haven't been scanned. But
Yep.
they should be in the library. Nancy did a pretty good job putting them all there.
they're
Okay,
there.
meeting notes 2006. I can do that.
And
Okay.
so they were doing YouTube, putting up, recording town meetings and putting them up
No.
at YouTube that far back?
No, but
Oh.
they would submit, you could buy a book, you can go to the town hall and buy the annual town report, and it lists all the salaries, it lists every article at town meeting,
Okay.
You know, it's just a town report of everything that happened for that year.
Yeah, but they did record them. They just
Oh,
weren't
did
on-
they?
Yeah, they
Did they
weren't
have those
on. I remember seeing, you'd see it on TV still, like a selectmen's meeting. It just wasn't wasn't
Okay.
YouTube back then. So I
Okay.
don't know that there's a, a place on the internet to find it.
Okay.
Kevin, you would know, right? If he's listening.
I don't know. He's
well,
been very
he's done.
silent.
Yeah,
Because that would be great. But I think it might be just faster if we could find that at the library.
Yeah, I think it's faster too.
I
Why
can
is my
pop
hand
in
up?
and I can pop in and check with them.
Oh, never mind.
Okay, that'd be great.
Alrighty, and then I'll have that information as soon as I get it, I'll forward it to Tony and she can forward it off to, everybody else or. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Alrighty.
all right, so next on the agenda is site walks. I don't think anybody's done any site walks in the past week since the last meeting. I know Jean and Lynn, you're doing a site walk tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
You wanna, it's basically, we received a complaint from a resident on Charles Street about potential drainage issues impacting his property. So the property in question, where they believe the runoff's coming, or where they believe the groundwater is being caused by, you guys are gonna take a ride out there tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
I made a phone call over to there and asked if I could come onto the property just to look at their basin. So.
Yep.
Yep, so Lynn has time at lunch to go with me and we shall go look and take pictures and see where it goes from there.
And that's it.
I have to go up to the town hall and see Tony tomorrow too.
Tim, did you do any site walks or did you sign any permits this week?
No, nope.
Okay. Yeah, at the last meeting, I talked about the one over on Bedford Street, the dentist office. We did that, so.
Yep.
All right, next up is meeting minute approval. Tony, what are we approving tonight? The 21st? I'm sorry.
Let me see. I did end up finishing the 24th, but I figured I'd give you guys time to review them. So I'd add it to just the next agenda, but everything except October and one September one. Let me find the email.
21st.
Yeah. That one.
All right,
Everything else is there.
you made changes. I had the comment on
Yes,
the-
we talked about that, right?
for September 13th, we're gonna change the time that Dan showed up.
Yep. We're gonna add those in.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? We'll start the 13th. Anybody else have any other questions for the 13th of September? Somebody want to make a motion to approve?
They spelt your name wrong a little bit.
Mine?
Just a few typos, that's all I saw.
All right. As
Okay.
long as you don't call me late for dinner, call me anything else.
Okay,
Believe me,
I've never
I've been
heard that
called-
before. That's pretty good.
I've been called a lot, so.
Me too. Surprise, right?
And I will go through and look at all of Paul's names too, and I'll adjust those as well.
Okay.
Somebody want to
Thank you,
approve
Tony.
somebody want to approve the September 13th meeting minutes?
I'll approve the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Somebody want a
September
second?
13th meeting minutes.
For
I'll
September
second.
13th, my apologies. I have terrible connection right now.
Okay, sure. I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, next is October 11th. Anybody have any comments on that one?
I'm sorry, on the last minutes, it looked like Tim wasn't at the meeting, so you probably need to show him abstaining.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, Lynn seconded it anyways before you
Yeah.
did.
It just,
Okay.
but still, it's just,
Yep.
that's all.
All right, anybody have any comments on the 11th of October? Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept October 11th meeting minutes.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. In November 11th, no, I'm sorry, November 8th. Anybody have any questions on that one or comments on that one? Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for November 8th.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And that's it. We'll do the rest at the next meeting.
Excellent,
Uh,
excellent.
correspondence, the only correspondence I had was what we discussed about the site walk that you guys are gonna be doing tomorrow, or the issue, which is causing the site walk for tomorrow.
Okay,
Where is the site walk tomorrow?
Over on Patterson Street.
it's just for a complaint. It's not for a project. It's just a
Oh, okay.
complaint. So, yep.
All right.
Anybody have anything else?
I think I'm good.
That's nice to see everybody, albeit on your computer screens.
Yeah.
Well, we can't see you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
we're
Well,
Right,
well,
exactly.
Truth be told, I'm at the library, so I figured this would be the best way to
Well, good. You
To
can
be
go get
appropriate,
the,
so.
you can go look at the meeting minutes.
There goes the
Ooh,
train.
Train.
Well, I guess this lives near the tracks.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
I know exactly.
Yeah.
I know exactly where Tim is now.
Very close to my house. I'm trying.
Oh, I thought
That's
you were
funny.
still. I thought you were still in Kingston. I was gonna say you're down by Solstice.
No, thank God I'm not down there anymore. No, I'm back in Abington.
Hey,
All right. Well, with that, I'll entertain someone to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And I will second.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
I
All right. See you in a couple weeks, everybody.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye.
have a good night, everybody.